Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Pre-Heresy and Codices, where I look at one Space Marine Legion preamble and give you my thoughts and opinions on what codex or codices would best represent them. And in this case, we're looking at the Emperor's Children Legion. The Emperor's Children Legion's one of the Traitor Legions, and as you can see, it has a color change pre and post heresy. Well, from pre to post heresy. Post heresy, and you could say the 40k timeline of Warhammer 40k, the 41st millennium, we know them as the black and pink armored pseudo punk rock gother punk rock goth looking type of space marines with spikes and tentacles and flay skin and all other gross goodness there in the mix. So that's what we know them as post-heresy. But pre-heresy, they actually had a nice regal purple with gold trim and using some silver/white accent coloring. So that's the color change from pre and post-heresy. That being said, let's look at what would best represent them. Now you kind of have a twofold approach here. I'm going to really recommend you look at just the regular generic Space Marine Codex for them, but the Chaos one with heavy restrictions can also work. With this though, it's a trade-off. It's kind of, do you want to represent them really kind of on that road to damnation via being a traitor, or are you trying to represent them when they were more noble and pure, before they really became corrupted by Chaos influences? Because I bring that up specifically because the Chaos Codex can do both, actually, and the Space Marine Codex can only do one. And I say that because the Chaos Codex, well, let's first talk about the restrictions for the Chaos Codex. No Obliterators, no Mutilators, no Possess, no Chaos Spawn, no Mauler Fiend or Forge Fiend, no Hell Drakes, whatever it's called, no Defilers, basically none of the demon-y stuff, no Chaos Sorcerers in my opinion either. So it's a lot of restrictions to utilize the Chaos Codex. I'm just going to put it out there. There's a lot of restrictions you got to put to yourself. But at the same notion, if you want to go and represent more of a pure non-traitor force of Emperor's Children, then you cannot field the Noise Marines. And also, of course, you couldn't field Berserkers, Rubric Marines, or Plague Marines. But Slaanesh is the Chaos God that the Emperor's Children worship specifically, so they have those Noise Marine units. And if you want to represent a force of Emperor's Children prior to the whole real heavy fall into Chaos, then you have to kind of disregard the Noise Marines as well. Remember, the Emperor's Children have kind of a longish slide to Chaos, and on that slide, they eventually really started experimenting with sonic implants and stuff like that. And that's why I say, if you want to kind of represent before that, don't go with the Noise Marines. Now, if you want to use the Chaos Codex to kind of represent them when they're really dabbling with Chaos and whatnot, but not full-blown traitor spiky stuff, because we're talking about the pre-heresy time period, then you can let the Noise Marines be usable. But really that limits you to just, that'll give you Chaos Space Marines, Chosen, Terminators, Raptors, and Noise Marines, basically. So you're if I didn't say, and Bikers, I should say, because I said Terminators already, plus your Chaos Lords. So you're really kind of limited. Of course, you got the Land Raider and the Predator and the Rhino. But you can do the Noise Marines, and I would recommend the Cacophony models for that from Forge World, and I'll get to that in a moment. There is another codex. Like I said, the generic Space Marine Codex I think also works very well for them. That really can't represent their debasement in Chaos, so there is no real model or unit equivalent you can use the Cacophony for. But this codex also has its restrictions, albeit a lot less. Firstly, you got to pick a chapter tactic, and that's up to you, but I feel the one that I think would work really well, the easiest, would be the Ultramarines chapter tactics, which is kind of funny. But anyways, restriction-wise, no Land Raider Crusader, no Land Raider Redeemer, and no Centurion squads. Now, the Flyers, the Storm Raven, and the Storm Talon, if I remember correctly, and I could be mistaken, one of the Horus Heresy short stories kind of makes mention to either the Storm Talon or the Storm Raven. I know it's not the Storm Eagle or the Stormbird they're talking about, but I think they make reference to a Storm Talon or a Storm Raven, and I could be mistaken. So one of those two might fit in the Horus Heresy time period, but you're better off just avoiding the flyers. Now the Hunter and the Stalker, I say they're such a logical vehicle to have that I wouldn't mind any Space Marine Legion force fielding one. It just makes sense to me, so I'm not really against those. But the things that I would say no to, personally, would be Crusader, Redeemer, Land Raider variants, Centurion squads, and there's flyers. It still leaves you a lot of codex to utilize. Oh, and I always forget about these guys when I think, but no Legion of the Damned squad either. But it still leaves you a lot of wiggle room in this codex. Now, if you're utilizing Chapter Tactics Ultramarines, then Captain Cato Sicaris would be a good special character entry to do accounts as for the Emperor's Children Legion. He would fit in very well for accounts as. Now, either codex would work. It depends on how heavy restriction you want to place on yourself and what kind of version of the Emperor's Children you're looking to field. Now, in terms of collecting them, they have it very easy. They have it very easy because they are allowed to use the Imperial Eagle symbol. By the Emperor decree that this Legion, the Emperor's Children, are allowed to utilize the Imperial Eagle. So your Mark 7 chest plates. Now some sticklers will still say it's Mark 7 and it looks different. Don't use it. But I would say, hey, it's got the Imperial Eagle symbol on there for you. Use it. But what that does is that also opens the door for a lot of other GW kits out there, specifically Sternguard and Vanguard to a degree, but the Sternguard kits, some of them have the Imperial Eagle emblazoned really heavily on them, as does the Vanguard. And they would be great to utilize. Just make sure you don't have Mark 7 helmets on them. So you have the door open to more GW kits to utilize, plus the Forge World Horus Heresy generic stuff, plus Forge World's Horus Heresy specific Emperor's Children stuff. The Emperor's Children Mark IV head upgrades can work really well in conjunction with the Sternguard stuffs. When you don't have if you don't have an older Mark or helmet to utilize on that kit, you can buy the Emperor's Children thing that further emphasizes an Emperor's Children force or Legion by the head. They also make torso upgrades if you really want that as well. They look pretty sharp. Now the Emperor's Children Legion Cacophony. The Emperor's Children Legion Cacophony are basically like proto-noise marines in a sense. The Chaos Codex, you have a way of fielding them. Because this is when they really started dabbling and doing kind of treasonous, treacherous things with gene seed manipulation a little bit, or trying to, and utilizing sonic implants and war gear and whatnot. So, if you want to represent that dabbling, you got the Cacophony models that I would utilize over the Noise Marine models. The Noise Marine models are too chaosified. These guys really aren't. Then you have the Emperor's Children Legion Palatine Blade Squad, and that squad is really slick looking. It's really sweet, and you can utilize them as chosen or honor guard members or squad leaders. The option is yours. But for Chaos, they can represent chosen. For generic Space Marines, they can represent honor guard or Vanguard without jump packs, or in either representation, they can represent squad leaders. They have shoulder pads, which are really cool to look into. They have Legion, Land Raider doors, and Rhino doors, which also look very nice. So all that stuff can work very well. Plus, they got brass etching and a transfer sheet for them. So you got lots of stuff that really Emperor's Childrenify your Space Marine Legion collection. Now, one last thing I want to talk about is the Emperor's Children Phoenix Terminators. They're really cool looking, and I can totally understand wanting to field a squad of these guys. However, there is no squad that outright has similar war gear options as these guys. Now, you may have the Horus Heresy Forge World books, you're making a Legion army list from that, and you're including these guys. Totally understandable. Here's one of 3 options you can do. Well, really one of 2. Okay, one of 3. You can take that one of those models and make it your HQ in Terminator armor, make it really stand out that way, because then you can kind of have war gear kind of similar to it. Or you can go ahead and sub them out for something else, which is an option you don't really want to do because they look cool. You want them to be fielded. The third option is a as a bit of a bitter pill to swallow, and it's going to take some open-mindedness, and that would be doing a counts as representation of an Assault Terminator with Twin Lightning Claws or a Chaos Terminator with Twin Lightning Claws. Now, the reason I say you need to have an imagination and be open to interpretation is because clearly these halberd-wielding Terminators don't have Twin Lightning Claws. But you could say they're really experts at wielding their halberd, and basically the rules of a Terminator having Twin Lightning Claws and the rules for how Lightning Claws wound things, you could say transfer over to them wielding this halberd. And as long as you pay the point cost for it, as long as these are unique looking and you don't have another Terminator squad with Lightning Claws visibly, visibly apparent, I should say, then you're good. I wouldn't have a problem with it personally if somebody said, hey, these guys, they're actually Assault Terminators with Twin Lightning Claws. I really wouldn't have a problem with it. It does take a little bit of thinking outside the box and a little bit of open-mindedness. I do know people who would be totally against that, and I understand it completely, but that is one thing you can consider for these really cool-looking models. Anyways, I'm done stumbling over my words. That's the Emperor's Children Legion in a nutshell. Two options there, depending upon what you want to do. And the reason why the Chaos Codex is an option outside of the dabbling with Sonic enhancement and all that is because they do have kind of an older War Gear feel to them. Things more in line with the Great Crusade time period, so a lot of people kind of like that about the Chaos Codex. Anyways, that's it for this edition of Pre-Heresy and Codices. That was the Emperor's Children. And up next in this Ramble series is going to be the Iron Warriors Legion, if I remember correctly. Yep, the Iron Warriors Legion, just double checking. Anyways, that's that, so until next time, take it easy.